Hi, welcome back to the Photoshop training channel. I'm Jesus Ramirez, and with me, I have a very special guest today, Mr. Bert Monroy. Hey, Bert, how's it going?
Good, pretty good, pretty good.
I am super excited to have you here for many, many reasons. But if you guys don't know who Bert is, he is one of the most incredible Photoshop artists in the world. We're friends now, Bert. But before we were friends, I was a huge fan, and there's a couple stories I would like to tell just to start out with that I don't know if you do know, but two fun
Okay.
facts. The first fun fact is that the very first book I ever bought on Amazon was one of your books.
Uh-huh.
So I forget the name of the book, but it was the with it had a white cover and it was a photo of the painting you did of Chicago of the train station.
Oh, that's a black one. That's a
Oh,
black
black
cover.
one. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. Yep.
There is a white one, but yeah, that actually that was the last book. That
I,
was in I think 2014. I wrote that book.
no,
That was
it had to be a book you wrote in 2002, and maybe I'm mistaking the cover,
oh,
but
then it is a white cover. It
yeah,
has see. I can show it to you.
yeah.
It's a cedar.
Yeah. By the way, for those of you that don't know, Bert is an incredible Photoshop artist. He's written many books on Photoshop, as you can tell. He co-wrote the very first book ever in Photoshop, and in his house there,
That's this one.
that's it right there. The very first Photoshop book ever written. You were one of the co-authors. It's a fantastic book. You also wrote Channel Chops, which is an
It's this
incredible
one.
book on channels.
Yeah,
That's the one. Yeah, and I
that's
was
the one.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wrong. That was not the Chicago one. I do have the Chicago one as well. But
Yeah, this was my first solo book because
there
I
you go.
co-wrote quite a few books before this in Japan and here and stuff. But this was the first solo book that I did. I've done many since, but that was the first solo book. Yeah.
Amazing. So that's, oh, by the way, I just want to say hello to everybody in the chat. We have Milan, Aish. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Krishan, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the chat if you have any questions. We're going to get into some Photoshop. Bert is going to show us a couple Photoshop tips and tricks on specifically working with layers. We're going to get to that in a moment. So we're just giving people enough time to join us. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And the second fun tip that I want to, or not tip, but fact. I don't know if you remember this, Bert, but I met you in person in Photoshop World 2013, and we weren't friends then. And I was walking down the hallway and I saw you coming, and then you had an injury. You injured your foot, so I think you were in like a wheelchair or
Oh,
something.
yeah, I was in a little. I had a knee operation and I was on the little rolling cart. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
and I
Got
completely
that.
stood on your way, and I didn't let you go through. I spread my arms wide, and I said, "Sir, please, sir, let me talk to you, sir." And then you were like, "Stop calling me sir. What's your name?" And then that particular year, our name tags had the city that we lived in, and it just so happened that Alameda, California, where I was living at the time, is really close to where you live in Berkeley, California. So you invited me to your studio. You gave me your card and invited me to your studio, and I was in your office maybe 2 weeks later, and I was just this random kid, and you were super nice and super cool, and I got to hang out at the studio you're at now.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
Anyway,
By the way, a quick story on this book that you mentioned before. The next book that I wrote, I told people to throw this one away because a
yes,
lot of the things that I showed in here were no longer useful because of the fact that the brush engine had come out. So there was a whole chapter here
right.
that was totally useless. It didn't work.
That's amazing. But anyway,
Oh,
Bert, why
man.
don't we tell the audience? We have a lot of people watching now. Why don't we tell the audience what we're going to learn today?
Well, what I'm going to do is actually going to introduce a new piece. I'm going to unveil a piece here. Now,
Amazing.
the reason I want to do that is because usually I'll unveil it at some conference or something, or then let me turn this off. Okay, so to shut that off, forgot. There's a painting there. I usually unveil them on Facebook and stuff, but this one is a little different. It's different in the sense of how I created it. So it's what I want to really get into here is what makes this one different. So I'm going to be talking a lot about layers in particular. Now, if people want to talk about other things and ask questions on anything, alpha channels, brushes, whatever, I'll be happy to answer them. But what I want to do here is really emphasize layers because layers are very important. That's not the new piece right there. Layers are very important how I work. Now, I remember the first time I saw layers. I uh, went down to Stanford University. Adobe brought me down there, and they stuck me in this big room, brightly lit with cameras all over the place, and a big mirror in front of me, which I knew had to be a one-way glass. And they said to open up Photoshop. There was a little Mac set up right there. So I opened up Photoshop, and my eye went right to the menu, and I said, layers. And I got really excited. Is layers? I've worked with layers before. The first time I saw layers was a program called Digital Darkroom, way back in the days of the Mac Plus days when it was only black and white. But the concept of layers was like, oh, this is going to save my life here. So layers play a very important role in the new painting. Um, it's critical in new painting. So I want to get into how I use them and how useful they are for future work as well. So should I go
Yeah,
right
yeah.
into
Let's
it?
go right into it. Yeah, people
All
can
right,
see your
well,
screen.
okay, so the image on the screen is my favorite of my paintings currently. It's called Paris Courtyard 2. Paris Courtyard 2. There is a Paris Courtyard, and it happens to be up there in the window. See, there it is right there.
Yeah,
That's a painting hanging in that room. Of course, this is all made up here.
and
So,
just to be clear, I want everybody to know that this is all created in Photoshop. This is not a photo. Bert creates all of his pieces 100% in Photoshop. Every now and again, he sprinkles in some Illustrator paths and shapes, but this is 100% Photoshop.
yeah, well, what I usually say is that Illustrator is my pencil on the canvas and Photoshop is the paint. So, being traditionally trained, that's the way I used to work. I used to, take a pencil and plot out what I was going to do, and then I would start painting on top of that. So I still work the same way, though the path tool in Photoshop is fairly powerful, so that I many times will rely on it to start creating some of the objects. Now, that's where I'm going to start right here is the layers. Now, there is a tremendous amount of complexity here. There's quite a few thousand layers in this painting here that make it up. Now, everything gets done in a separate file. Okay, so I'm going to show you a file like I'm going to show you this building on the left. So we're going to go to building on the left right here, and there's that file. Now, the reason I do it in separate files is because of the tremendous amount of layers. Okay, so if I was to put everything together into one file, the file would be too big. Okay, it would be like a 50 gigabyte file. All right, like in some of my paintings. Like there's one Amsterdam Miss in which one tree alone is 5 gigabytes.
Wow.
So, I keep them into separate files and then I combine them into a main file. Now here, I'll show you here. Here's the layers. All right. Now, right up here is the comp layer. See, a building left comp, the composite file. This file then goes over to the composite file where I assemble all the individual pieces. Now, the amount of layers in here, like for instance here's a group that's closed right off the bat, and each one of these has a series of layers. See? Many layers. So now if we go through the entire layer panel, you can see that there are a lot of layers in this image alone. See? I think they're all open, all the folders, but you can see it goes on forever and ever and ever and ever. There's a lot of layers. So now I'm going to go in here and select say, click on this one right here, right? Oh, I got to be in the, I'm not up there. Yeah, let's be here, there. And I'm going to click on this, which brings me down to cavities. See, that's cavities. If I see just the cavities right here, there they are. That's the two cavities. That's the areas where the windows are. So I'm going to zoom in on this one a little closer here. So there's the cavity, and it has some tones in there. And when I start to turn on there's a grime layer, see? So each one of these layers are clipped by this bottom layer here. So there's the edge there, and here's the frames, and here's the opening, and there's the door edge, and there's the screws. You probably don't even see where they are. They're so tiny. And there's the doors, there's the glass, and there's the curtains. There's the curtains. So there you see all the different parts of that. Now, this is very dark because there's a plant there, right? But you see all the different layers that made it up. Here, let's turn this back on. There you can see the plant. That's a separate file altogether. So all those layers make up just the windows, the two windows that you saw there. Now, when I have everything on, and let's just say we put all these guys together here, let's just see we have that, right? So now I come up here to the top, and I want to go and let's close these all up so you can see kind of what's there. Now I want to merge all these, right? Even, well, let's take all these, turn them on. They're there. I want to merge them so I can make the composite file. So I got them selected, and I come over here and I say merge visible, right? But when I say merge visible, you see that they disappeared. The layers that weren't on disappeared. So let me undo that. The Option, Command, and Shift keys, Control, Option, and Control, Alt, and Shift on a PC. I'm only going to say that once. They are modifying keys. They change the way things work. A lot of times, none of that stuff is documented, but they change even filters. Applying a filter with the Option key pressed is going to change the way that filter works. Not all of them, but quite a few of them. So what I do is I hold down the Option key on the Mac here, and then I say merge visible. And you see that it created a new layer right there that has everything that's on currently open, but the layers are still there. The layers are still there. Now something looked like it appeared. See, I put older buildings here so I could see them in how they reacting to this new building and so on. So that composite file then goes to the composite layer, the composite file, and then I slowly assemble it. Now, keeping all those different layers in place, I'm basically setting up my own little stock library, my own little stock collection of images that I can reuse in other places. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by that. Here's my Times Square image. This is Times Square. Those who don't know my work, this is a piece that I did back in 2008, I believe, or 10. And it took 4 years. It's 5 feet by 25 feet. It's pretty detailed, as all my pieces. If I zoom into my son's eyes over here, you can see the reflection of what he's looking at. See, and you go up into these windows here and you can see inside. Those are my paintings in the walls, of course. And you can see all the things that are going on, and there's a little party going on down here somewhere. One of these has there's a little party going on.
I like the Iron Man on that billboard.
Oh, you like that? There he is. Yeah. Yeah, he was created. I used to do a demo on how I created the metal effect. But anyway, so here's Times Square. Now, when I was doing looking around and starting to create the elements for it, here's a little right here. This is one of my shots that I took for reference, right? Now, when you come over here and you look at this garbage can right here, there's a garbage can. Now, when I saw that garbage can, it's like, I did that before. I've done that garbage can. And I did right here in this painting here. There's Damon. This is my first panorama. And there's the garbage can. There it is. It's white and has all these shadows and so on. But since I create the file and save all the layers, I can easily change that. So here we see the trash can. There's the file of the trash can itself. And when we look at the layers, there they are. Here's all the layers, right? So all I needed to do in this particular case was to go in here and turn off the layers of the shadows right there. Now the shadows are all gone. Turn off the background, and I'll go in here and do a merge visible with my Option key. Say merge visible. And there's that. So now I can go into hue saturation here, colorize it, bring it into the greens, nice green like that, and darken it. There's my green garbage can. So when we go back to Times Square over here, and let's see where one of those is. There's one right here on this corner. Let's see where we could find it. Yeah, there it is right there. There's one right there. See? So there's a trash can. I didn't have to go and create this. I saved a lot of time considering it took 4 years to do this. I didn't have to recreate the garbage can, which appears in a couple other places. But because of the fact that I had done it before, I had a little stock library of garbage can. And all I had to do was make the changes you just saw, and then I can use it here. So creating all these images and all these elements, everything is in its own layer. Now, this painting here has close to 700,000 layers. Let me just show you something here, which will be kind of bizarre.
By the
Right
way,
here.
a gentleman, I believe it's a gentleman by the name of Fofino, says that Fog City is their favorite one of your pieces, 2020.
That's my third and latest panorama. I'll show that later. So here's this guy, right? There's the composite right up on top. And let's go here and just see the background. Okay. So here are the paths that made it up. Here's the paths for all the different shapes, right? So now when we start turning on those, there's the cup in the bottom. There's the little highlights. There's a little outline. There's a little white thing. I don't know why I put that in there, but it's in there. Oh, it's the highlights. There it is. There's the strawberries, and there's all the shiny stuff on top. Now, what is this little ice cream thing? Well, when we go back to Times Square over here, and we get real close in here to this Mr. Softy truck, and we go into the window there. There it is.
Wow, there it
See?
is.
So I don't know if it's strawberry or cherry, one of those two. But see, every one of these things is composed of many individual layers that that make it up, and then they're brought into the. I have a composite file of the sign itself, which then gets brought into the composite file of the truck itself. So everything gets composed into multiple layers and multiple files. So, and these are all people that I know. Is close to 200 people down here. They're all people that I know. In fact, here's a picture of me right here, taking a picture of my wife. There she is. And of course, yes, she is in the camera too. See, so there's a lot of detail here that a lot of people don't even see. And things that I throw in there myself, like for instance, way over here, here's something that nobody has ever seen, but right here, see, there's nature
Wow.
coming through. See, the camera would never pick that up,
Yeah.
but my painting does.
And this is why it
So,
took 4 years to create.
yeah, yeah. So that gives you an idea of how this all works. Now, um, Paris Courtyard. Let me now talk about Paris Courtyard, which is right here.
Before you start, let me just quickly say thank you to Ibrahim Hasim, who just sent us a nice donation to the show. Thank you, Ibrahim.
Oh, is that the guy who wanted to see talked about Fox City?
No, that was
Oh, that was
that
somebody
was
else.
Fofino, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name.
Yeah, some of these names are hard to. I'll tell you what. Let's just go in here and look at Fog City. Let's
Mhm.
take a little detour. Here's Fog City. This is a fun panorama. There it is. There. It's the view from my windows out there, looking at the fog, which right now is out there. And this is San Francisco. And yes, this up here is a little plane up there. See, there's a little plane. There's a lot of detail in these things. Here's all the and reusing things like um, things with layers and all that stuff. If we come over here, and here's Twin Peaks. So I'm going to get into Twin Peaks here real close. And there's people there. See all the people?
Mhm.
Those are people from Times Square.
Okay.
Those are all people from Times Square that are all standing down there, hanging out, being tourists. So I get to reuse a lot of things, and so I have a big stock library of my art. Even though I'm bringing in something that I did some before, it's still original art because they are my pieces. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't bring any photographs in here at all. But that's Fog City that the guy mentioned before.
By the way, I see on the analytics that we have 600 people watching. So feel free to leave your comments, questions. I'll be happy to ask Bert. He's not looking at the chat, but I am. Roja Dal said, damn, this is amazing art. Suvin said, hi. Hi, Suvin. Also, let us know where you're watching from. Some people are letting us know that they're watching from Portugal, Pakistan, Nepal. So thank you, everybody, so much for watching.
Some people should be sleeping right now.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, well, yeah, my art, if they want to see my art, just go to bertmonroy.com. There's a lot of stuff. And I unveiled a piece recently at the Creative Pro where you and I were together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unfortunately, you left the day I arrived because we were on different days.
Yes.
But anyway, maybe I'll show that a little later. But I'm going back to this one
Okay.
because, like I said, this painting is very different from any painting I've ever done before. And it hit me looking at this because it's framed in my dining room. I just sort of, I always talk about using layers and manipulating layers and doing all kinds of stuff to create my images and reuse my images. Well, when looking at this Paris Courtyard 2, I thought, well, all the layers are there. Why don't I do something to it? So I decided to totally redo this image without actually redoing it. I just went into every single layer and modified it.
Okay.
I did some changes here and there. I did some colorizing and all that. And right here, this was a early, really early in the morning in Paris, and the sun was rising. So you get the light up on top here, and down here it's kind of dark, right? So this is the new painting right here, there. It's
Wow.
the exact same painting, but I have totally changed everything to give us a night scene. It's called Paris Courtyard at Night. Now I'm going to zoom into that window we saw at the beginning. Remember, I was building that window? Because all the layers were there, the curtains are still there, but I just added a little glow here from the window. I added a little glow to this side of the plant, and I put one of my paintings in there, and I put a couch in there and a wall, so that now it looks like it's a lit room at night. All of these have, different scenes, and everything in here came from somewhere else. Nothing was created for this scene here, except maybe the highlights of the moon way up here and stuff like that. Those were added. That's a layer that was painted into here. But here, like for instance, here, the chandelier came from another painting. The chairs came from another painting. Way over here, this area here, these two wine glasses I added. I
Nice.
took the table from another painting, and then my wife said, it's nighttime, and there were settings because it was from a restaurant. Settings here. She says people are not going to have dinner now, so I took out the plates, put in a plant from somewhere else, and I created the two wine glasses to put them in there. But
Nice.
everything here was a modified layer based on the original image. Now, I don't guess at things. Everything is
Now,
is
Bert, quick question before you get into that, because I think I know where you're going. I have a couple questions in the chat. The one that I will ask you is, what type of computer setup is Mr. Monroy using to handle such large and complex files?
well, I have a Mac Studio. I have last Mac that came out. It is completely filled with RAM. I have close to 80 terabytes of storage throughout the studio with all kinds of drives. There's a whole set of drives over to my right here, four backup drives that I can just grab and yank and run because I do live in the Berkeley Hills and we are prone to fires like in LA recently. Um, and in fact, they're across the street right now trimming a tree to one of my neighbors because of the firewise that we all have to now go through all kinds of measures because of the big fire that happened in LA. But I have a lot of storage, and I work on a Wacom Cintiq, which is a touch screen. That's this guy. You can. Are they seeing me right now?
Yeah, they can see you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is a touch screen monitor, and I have a stylus, and I work directly on it. I am traditionally trained, so this monitor brings back all the techniques because it is tilt sensitive and pressure sensitive, and I hold it like a brush. Sometimes I'll be standing and hold it this way, depending on what I'm painting. And so that's the main working monitor. It's 32 inches. On top here, I have three BenQ monitors, two 32s, and the one in the middle is a 5K monitor. There used to be a 34-inch monitor there, which is now over there for guests who are coming over. Um, let's see if we can see it over there. No, you can't, but it's back there.
Yeah.
But anyway, they they're my viewing monitors. The main one in the middle will be where I'm looking at the actual reference that I'm painting from. The one on the left here will have my painting and the reference at full screen, so I can see what the effect it's having on the overall image. And then that one over there will just have other bits of reference and stuff that I'm working on. So that's my basic setup is the 4 monitors and a very powerful Mac and a lot of disk drives all over the place.
And Michael thoroughly saying, I first learned about Bert since he was on Screensavers on CNET back in the day with Leo Laporte.
Ah, yes, I did that for 3.5 years. Yeah, the screensaver. That was a lot of fun. Live TV. Um, I did 2 pilots for Tech TV. I was on 4 of their different shows, but I was on Screensavers for 3.5 years, once a month, sometimes twice a month. So I did a lot of shows for the Screensavers, and I did a pilot for a show of my own, but then Tech TV got sold. That show eventually became Pixel Perfect, which was my podcast that I did 150 episodes for Revision 3, which are former Tech TV people. I did another podcast, Pixel Playground, which is still available on LinkedIn Learning. I did 180 episodes of that. I haven't done any in years, but they're still pertinent. There's still stuff. But yeah, those were fun days back in Tech TV.
Absolutely.
So back to this guy.
Yeah.
Now, I don't leave anything to chance. I research everything. Because I'll do a painting and somebody will send me an email. That corner over there, that wire doesn't look like it's going. I get that kind of stuff. People look at the stuff so closely that they're looking for mistakes. I think that's what they want to do. They're looking for mistakes. So I make sure there are no mistakes. Now, because of the fact that the sunrise was casting those beautiful tones on the image before, let's go look at the Paris courtyard. So all these nice tones over here. Now I created this moon over here. The moon is going to cast a whole different shadow than the sun that's way off to the side. Like for instance, right here. Let's go in close on this one right here. See this panel here, like this is covering it. It's not covering the sun, but it is covering the moonlight. So I have to see how these things will work and how are the shadows going to work. So I do create studies. Here, for instance, I printed out the piece on a black and white printer, and I cut out the sky and I lit it the way the moon will light, so I could see how the shadow is going to fall on the buildings across. I can see exactly where things are falling. On that other, we can get a little closer on that so you can see there. There now I can see exactly where the shadows are falling in relation to the windows and so on. And that other little corner is another little model I created. I just put a slat of wood there, and I put a box the way that thing is showing up, and I separated them visually about the same distance. So I studied how the shadow worked. So then when you look at the painting itself, right here, we see that here's the shadow of the buildings, and right up here, there's the shadow on that wall. So you can see how it's falling just the way I studied it in the model that I made, and I was able to see how that shadow would appear on that piece of wall there. So everything here that I had to create from scratch, I do some research on it. And I do a lot of research on a lot of my paintings. So that gives you an idea of how things work. Sometimes I'll do models. In fact, actually here, let me show you other models. Let's see. I wasn't planning on doing this, but let me go into here. And let me see, demo files and demo groups. This is Dave Cross still in here, or maybe he's on the.
While you look for that, I'm just going to give some shout outs to people who've been leaving comments. Michael Arthley from Guyana, thank you so much for watching. We have Rajadal, thank you so much. Aaron from New Zealand. I've never been to New Zealand, but would love to go. We have Happy Doom from Krautland. Amazing work, Bert. I love to see the layers panel. I'm guessing he's talking. I'm sure we're going to look at the layers panel in a moment. Awesome. We have a somebody called Private Use. Bert is my idol.
Okay. Um, Here's a, let me see, I do have it here. I'm pretty sure I have it. Then the Dome study.
See, I think Bert has the same problem that I do. That somebody will make a comment and then you have to
Yeah.
show it, and then
Then I have to go find it.
you
Yeah.
have to go find it. Yeah, that happens to me all the time.
Yeah. Inspiration. Well, here's this painting. Um, Bank stones, wood textures, shadow. Yeah, here we go. All right. So I did this painting here. And it was based on a just this area here. Well, I might as well show the whole thing here. Turn this into a whole demo. Here's the inspiration. That's the photograph that inspired the thing. But you see that the wall is not seen here, right? I did have a another file. Here's this one. This is taken from my window. Now here you see the whole building. Here you see the whole building, which is what I based the overall painting on right here. Let's go see that painting right there. So there's the whole painting. Now, how did this shadow work on the extension of the wall there? Well, here's what I did. I went in there and here we go. I created another little model right there, in which I took some sticks and some straws and a couple of chopsticks here, and I did this little structure so I could see how the shadow would travel along the wall there. And there's my 3 monitors back there, and there's the Cintiq, you can see it. But I created this little model so I could study how the shadows fell. So when I then created the actual painting here, those shadows would be accurate right in there like that. See? So that's where I do studies of reality in order to see how things work. I made a model of the Sutro Tower for that Fog City that we saw before, that big tower. I did a little model of it with just some pieces of wood and a cardboard to hold them together. And so I study the way light hits things so that when I do it, it's going to be accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Because even the untrained eye, if it's off, even the untrained eye is going to look at that and say, that doesn't look right. That looks wrong. They might not know why, but your brain is telling you that doesn't work like that. That's the way light works. So it'll look wrong. So I make sure that everything I do is accurate in all aspects. Yeah. So that's I went into more stuff than I was expecting there. But so what else? Are there any other questions that I can maybe deviate into a bunch of different demos?
No questions. Just people saying they're glad to be here. Rojadal says they're happy to be here. Cormick Co says shout out from the Philippines. I can feel the passion in his heart. Fantastic job. So yeah, just a lot of nice comments. Thank you everybody for commenting.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll show you this. This is the last painting that I did before the one I just showed today. This is evening fog on the corner. This is my house here. These are my redwoods. I have 9 of them in the property. They're over 100 feet tall. There's 38 total in this big grove, which you don't see because of the fog. There's my car and stuff. This tree here took quite a few days to do. There's a good study in layers right there, because I was talking about this at the show recently. Here's the main tree. Now, there it is. Now you'll see that every main branch is in a separate layer, and they're colorized. They're colorized. That way I know which is which, because sometimes the layer goes in front of another, like right in there, and behind another, like right there. So I needed to know what they were. So that way I can go in there and start putting them in their right position. And once they were all there, I went in and started turning on all the layers that make up the textures. See, these are the layers that make up the textures in the tree. And when I start turning them all on, we'll see that the tree starts to fill itself up. There's more here, another one, and another one. So now the tree is complete. But you see that before I started adding the actual textures, that we come in closer look at the textures of the tree. There's the actual tree trunk. They were all done in separate layers, in separate colors, so I can easily go in there and say which piece is in front of another and so on, so I will get the tree to look accurate. Um, and I did another demo on this particular piece, which I think I like to show now. Right here, this right here. This is these trees. Now, when you look at the painting, and the painting is Evening Fog right here, we're getting close. We see that the light, the tree is picking up that light right behind it there. So how did I create that? So we'll go in here and we'll go into the main tree on the left. And here's the layers. Now, there's a composite down here. Here's the main tree. There's different layers. As you can see, there's different layers that make up the tree. It's start turning them off and so on. So what I'm going to do is turn them all on. There's the tree. I'm going to turn off the background. So it's just the tree itself. Let me pull back. Just the tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to merge them. I'm going to go in there and option merge visible. Option merge visible, which created a whole tree by itself. Now I'm going to take that tree, I'm going to lock the transparency, and I'm going to fill it with white. There it is. It is now a white tree. So I'm going to bring it down and put it behind this tree here. Let's turn on the background again. So it's behind it. We don't see it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, get a little closer, so we see what's going to happen now. So I'm going to take this tree, and I'm going to duplicate it behind it. There it is. Now you're starting to see the little edges. But let's turn this one off. I'm going to take this one here, and I'm going to move it up. Get my move tool. I'm going to push it up a pixel right there like that, and maybe one more right there. See? So there. Now, there's the lights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give that a mask. Now, when you give it a mask, there's a mask, right? I have to paint in with black, but let me undo that. Remember what I said about those option keys and stuff? I'm going to hold down the option key and give it a mask. And look, see, now the mask is black. So now I could take a nice paintbrush, and I happen to have a nice soft one, and I'm going to go in there and set it at 100. Yes. So I'm going to go in there and just paint right in here. And actually, that's the tree on the bottom here. So we're going to just paint that right there like that so we can see it. Then this guy back here, I'm going to move him down a couple. Give it a mask and expose it only where I want it, right up in here. And there we can see that now we have all those nice little highlights on the tree to give you the illusion that the light is just being reflected on those edges of the tree branches and not over the rest of the image, because that's masked out over here so we don't see it. If we turn off the mask and see that, there we can see that it's all the way around, but by turning the mask back on, there we can see that the highlights are only in that little tiny area there.
It looks amazing. A couple of questions, Bert, unrelated to the demo, but I think they're very interesting. Number one is there a tool or Photoshop function missing that Mr. Monroy would like to see added someday?
Yeah, I've been asking for this one for a million years. I've been asking for the ability, you know how you can put all layers into little folders? I've been asking for that for
paths. Okay.
paths.
Okay.
And I keep saying, I'd love to be able to put folders for paths. And they said, nobody uses paths like you do. That's what they always tell me. Nobody has ever asked for that except me. So it's like, that's what I've been asking for years, to have folders, because sometimes I'll have like 100 paths and I name them, see, plant 1, plant 2, you know, all the different paths. But, you know, sometimes I would like to have groups, so I can say these are the window paths, you know, which is the frame and this and that and all that, so I can have all the paths organized. That's the one thing. They've added a lot of stuff that I just love. I remember the brush engine. When the brush engine came out, that I thought I had died and gone to heaven. In fact, when you look at the brushes and you go down and all these brushes that are available, I want to draw attention to these 3 right here. This one, and this one. I've seen a lot of people use this grass brush for things.
I use it all the time.
Yeah, these 3 are mine. I did those brushes. There's a whole bunch more in the sets that you can pick up from here. But they brought me down to look at what they were developing called the brush engine, because I was one of the few artists who were alpha testers who would see these things in development stage. So I could see it in early development, that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I started playing with it. And I said, I haven't seen anything this cool since Pixel Paint. Pixel Paint was what I used to use before Photoshop for color painting. And they all started laughing. And I didn't know why they were laughing. And then they told me that Jerry Harris wrote the brush engine. Jerry Harris is one of the two guys with Keith McGregor who wrote Pixel Paint back in the 80s. So it was very interesting that we got rejoined and hung out, and it was nice to see him again. But he wrote the brush engine. But when I saw the brushes, that really totally changed the program for me.
And since you brought it up, Bert, why don't you show people how to access the legacy brushes? Because Adobe, for some reason, hid them.
Oh, they're up here.
Yeah, gear icon, and make sure you go down to legacy brushes at the very bottom.
Right there.
And then that will append a new group of brushes, and that's where you can find the brushes that Bert added to Photoshop. And they've been there, what, 20 years at this point?
Oh God, no. That was version 7.
So about 27, 28 years now then?
Yeah, something like that. It's been a while. Yeah.
The next question I have here for you is, what is the maximum number of layers you've ever worked with in Photoshop? Roja Dell is asking the question.
I've never counted, but I'll tell you what, since we have Times Square open, Times Square here. I did count one once, right here. This lamppost right here has 198 layers.
Wow, just the lamppost.
Just this lamppost. And I might add that the the one-way signs are 2 layers each because they were done somewhere else. I created 2 one-way signs, one pointing that way, one pointing that way. They have the border, they have the black, they have the one-way, and they have the arrow, right? And then the side, because there is a side visible right there. See it? There's a little side there. They were brought in as composites. So instead of being all those layers, which is like 12 layers or whatever, there's only 4.
Okay.
There's 2 different things here. But the one-way signs are all over the place. There's a lot of them. Let's see another set here.
There goes
there goes what?
I was gonna say John Knoll and Thomas Knoll.
Oh yeah, the two guys who wrote Photoshop.
Yeah,
right
so
there.
those 2 guys right there in the center are the creators of Photoshop. They wrote it in '88, if I'm not mistaken.
That's the first time I saw it. Yeah, that's when Thomas wrote it, and John, who was working at ILM at the time, joined in and said, "Hey, we can expand this. There's Julian Koss and Russell Brown. The first product manager of Times Square is right here, Steve Dushin. There he is, right there. He was the first product manager
of Photoshop.
Yeah.
Wow.
Way back in the day, a long time ago. Yeah, there's a lot of people here. They're all well-known people. That's me when I used to drive a cab in New York.
There you go.
Long time ago. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of well-known photographers. There's Jerry Harris, by the way. He's the guy who wrote the brush engine and wrote Pixel Paint. And that's Bill Atkinson, who recently passed away. Bill Atkinson wrote Mac Paint, which is what made me go digital. That's what made me give up all the other paints and paintbrushes and go digital. But Bill Atkinson wrote Mac Paint.
Well, selfishly, my favorite painting of yours is the French courtyard.
Le Dome.
Le Dome.
I know why. I'm gonna open it. I'll open it.
Yeah.
Why it's your favorite.
Yeah. Selfishly, that's my favorite. Let me see if there's any other questions in the chat. Diana Principe is saying, "Love watching you create these pics. Mind blowing." Awesome.
Diana Principe?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Diana. That happens to be my sister.
Oh, there you go. Hi, Diana.
Okay. So this is by the way, let me just show you how different things look. Here's the reference for Le Dome. This is the photograph that I took. There it is. There's the photograph that I took. Now you see the distortion here?
Yeah.
Because that's the way the camera, and it was fall, so the trees. I mean, it was winter. The trees don't have leaves. The sky is not much, but I like I like the image. I like it. So I decided I'm going to paint this. Like for instance, here you there's a food cabinet. You can't really see much. There were these uh, things here that black things. I couldn't tell what they were. So I went to Google Street View and did a whole walk around the block to see what things look like. So the final painting, Le Dome, right there, you can see that those blocks over there are these really
Hmm.
nice looking stained glass. Let's get real close in on this one.
Yeah, let's get in. There you go. Look at that. Oh my, that guy makes the entire piece, I think.
There he is. That's
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
there I
Yeah.
am, and Anne Marie Concepcion and David
Oh,
Blattner
yeah.
on the other
David
side.
Blattner
Yeah,
right there. There's Anne Marie. Yeah. And David Blattner. And yeah, there's a lot of people. These are always people that I know. There are always people that I know.
you're.
Oh, by the way, there's the food cabinet. See, now you can see it. All right. I made up some crabs. I made some clams and all kinds of stuff like that. So
Your sister just said hi, bro.
okay. See, actually, those clams, I haven't demoed that in a long time. That's so easy to do.
All
Here,
right,
let me show you those clams. Yeah, see, there's the whole pile of clams. I only did 4 clams, but here's the way I did them. Here, let me create a whole new one here. 12, yeah, that'll work. All right, so I'll create a shape.
okay.
This will be a shape right here. Like that. This is going to be the clam right there. And then what I'm going to do is in a layer, because everything goes into a layer, create a layer, and I'm going to go ahead and fill that with that gray that I have there. So I'm going to fill that with gray. Boom, there it is. So now we can turn off the path, and I'm going to create another layer right there. So we'll fill it with that same gray. Now I'm going to give this noise, add noise. In fact, let's fill it with a kind of a brownish color, make it more realistic. About like that. Yeah, let's fill it with that. There. So now I'm going to give that noise, add noise. A lot of noise. There's a lot of noise and we'll keep it monochromatic. Click OK. So now I'm going to give that another filter. One thing I like to tell people, my students, that layer styles, filters, they all have names. Forget the names. They have to give them a name. It's what they do. They give you all these controls, right? And the modifier keys that change things. They give you all these controls. Play with them. See what they do because they will solve problems. Like, for instance, the one I'm going to use here is motion blur, which is to create that little bit of a motion when things are moving. I have used motion blur, I would say at least 600-700 times in my lifetime, of which for motion blur, I've only used it twice. It gives you an idea. Motion blur. And there, well, I did, oh, that's right, I did wood the last time. So it's still there. So there's a large amount of that color. It just streaked them out. So you can see the edges. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in there and I'm going to go to levels. And I'm going to bring all the tones in towards the middle here. So now we can start to see the actual little stripes. There they are. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip it with the little clam. Option, click between them, and there it is. There's the stripes inside there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this area, that area right there, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to warp it. So I'm going to grab this guy, bring it over to here, bring this guy over, bring this guy over to here, bring this guy way up here, bring its lines. Oops. Now I know what I'm doing. Hold on, I'm in the wrong layer. Escape. That one.
Yep, that happens.
Okay. Yep. So I go in here and say warp. Now he's doing it. Bring that one to there. Bring that one to here. Bring this one way up here. And this one can stay there. Now I'm going to start to move these guys like that. This guy, and that guy. And then we just modify it a little bit. Click OK. And then using a little burn tool here, I'll just darken this side here and darken that side just a little bit. And then with the dodge tool, I may add a little highlight. Oops. Let's get back to the dodge tool. Make it a little smaller, and I'll just add a little highlight right there. And there you can see that now we have a little clam.
Nice.
And that's how the clams in the painting were done. Let's go back to the dome. And there you can see them. I only did 3 or 4 of them. And then I just repositioned them and added different shadows. The shadows and highlights were added later once they were all in place so that they look like a whole bunch of different ones, but they're not. They're all basically done on a few. Same thing with the oysters here. There's only a few, but then I change them around, change little things here and there, and you'll see that like this one, you see this little curve, you can see it there, but it's been modified slightly so you don't really see it.
Sure.
But there you can see that all these things were created for Le Dome. Yeah, based on the original shot, I actually put trees, put the leaves, and I made a totally different sky. And the people in the foreground are new people. These are all new people. There's
Colin Smith.
Colin Smith is the neighbor across the street. There's my wife right there. And these people are all new for this painting. The ones way in the background back there are people from Times Square. Like, in fact, Jerry Harris is right there driving the car. See? He's from Times Square. So these are all the foreground people are new. And Anne Marie and you are new, whereas David Blattner came from Times Square, but I put some grays in his hair because it's
a few years later. That's right.
Yeah. So everything here was, modified, and this building here was under construction, all kinds of stuff. So my Google Street View allowed me to see all this stuff and the details so that I can get them accurate.
Awesome. So we're almost at the hour, but before I let you guys go, I want to give you one last opportunity to ask Mr. Monroy a Photoshop question. Let us know in the chat. One just came up, Bert. What is your favorite keyboard shortcut in Photoshop?
My favorite keyboard shortcut? Undo.
Undo. I always say mine is save, Control S, because that one's the one I do instinctively because.
Yeah. That's whenever yeah. Go ahead.
I've had some horror stories where I worked on a project. This is a long time ago. This is 20 years ago. I was working on something. I spent 4 hours, 5 hours on it. Computer crashes, lost everything. And after that day, I instinctively, every 2 seconds, I'm pressing Control S.
Yeah, me too. The minute I do a series of strokes, I'll look at them. I pull back to look at them. I save while I'm looking at them. Yes. Yeah, but multiple undos. I remember when they came out. Boy, was I thankful for that. I started relying on the history panel, but then multiple undos made it easy.
Sure.
I always say that's the one thing I wish I had in life is a undo button.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it takes, especially when you're working freehand like I do, there are many times that the stroke isn't quite right. I undo it and try it again, undo it, try it again until I get it right. So that undo really, to me, is my favorite keyboard shortcut.
Okay, we have another question from Otto. Otto Mantone, in that French courtyard, what was the first thing you did when you sat down at the computer and started? Where do you start? Which actually I think is a really good question, and something so complex. Where do you start?
Well, let's do it with Times Square. Okay, where do I start? Well, let's switch to Illustrator. I start with the most important thing, the way I would start back in the traditional medium. I would establish my horizon line, and my vanishing points, and work up all my perspective lines. In the case of Times Square, it was crucial to do all that stuff. Oh, I have it open here. A year ago? Oh, wow, that's an early version of it. Oh, never mind that. Wow, I opened that a year ago on this machine. Let's go here. Let's go to Times Square, and let's go way down to Times Square. And Times Square. working files, and AI base, working base. What are these two? Let's try AI base. Ignore. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so there's a composite of where it was going to be. And let's close this off. And this is where it starts. Let's turn off the panel back there and let's pull back. Ah, you know what? Okay. Let's go down again. Working base. There we go. Okay, this will have, no, it's not. All right, back here. Let me pull back now. So here's where I start. Let's turn all these guys on. There's all the perspective lines for everything. The vanishing line is right here. And I start working up all the perspective. Now, the reason this guy was crucial was because of the fact that this is the center of the scene. This is 7th Avenue going up this way. Broadway is going up this street, but Broadway is at an angle. Okay, it's going at an angle, which means each block down the street, each building is going to have a different vanishing point than the ones on here. Now, the reason I do it in Illustrator, because again, this was pretty big. Here's the size comparison to the painting. But the vanishing lines, vanishing points down 45th Street are way out here. Remember that this is 25 feet wide. They're way out here. So I do it in Illustrator because it's resolution independent. So I create all the different paths for this, and all those paths are very crucial to get the perspective right. And then for the individual pieces, they will be brought in to the main file, where they will then be used to create the windows and all that kind of stuff. In some cases, the lines themselves, like right here, all the windows are right in there to get those properly. In fact, here I'll show you one really weird one. Right down here, you can hardly see it. Wait, no, here it is. There, this one, that one. See all those little lines? A lot of lines. What are they? Let's go see what they are. The perspective has to be perfect, or else it's not going to work. Those little lines are right here on that little ice cream truck we saw before. See the vents.
Mm.
They all have to be in the proper perspective. See, these are almost straight on. These are kind of pointing down. That's because when you're looking at it, they're going to be going towards the vanishing point because the truck is at an angle. So the ones here, the higher up, the more of an angle it's going to be. The lower down, the more of an angle going this way is going to be. So I created all the vanishing points, all the perspective lines, so that I could then create every individual vent into that area. So I start by working out my perspective of how the buildings and all the shapes are going to be. And that's where I start. Everything is done with perspective lines, including the piece the piece I just unveiled. No, because the original Paris Courtyard has, here's building left, the original. And I go over here and perspective. Oh, I dumped them at some point. I threw them away. But there were perspective lines that were in there to show me the perspective of where it was flowing. But anyway, that's where I start, is establishing the perspective and the basic elements, just outlines in Illustrator of where this building is going to go, where this is going to go, and so on. Then the details start getting added. So I slowly work up the composition, and then from there I start generating the pieces.
Okay, just a few more questions. One of them you'll already answer, so I'll answer it. DD Phillips is asking, what is the largest number of layers you have ever worked in a project? As you said earlier, you've never really counted, but some pieces could be up to hundreds of layers. So
Times Square is close to 700,000.
700,000. There we go.
Yeah, but there's over 10,000 files.
Sure,
So,
sure. So safe to say hundreds of thousands.
yeah.
The next question I have here, a lot of wows. I just I was reading something. Oh, here, it's a good question by Shota. What key skills or principles should a digital artist master to create truly realistic and impactful artwork beyond just knowing the software and tools?
Well, knowing the software and tools is the most important thing to be able to create it. But what I think, which is another thing that I tell my students usually, is to go through life with your eyes open. Yes, have your heart and your mind open, but your eyes to look at things, to see things. Um, Many years ago, in Manhattan, when I grew up in New York City, um, I remember I had lunch with a friend of mine, and he wanted me to go back to his office. He wanted to show me something, and we go to his building, and above the entrance was this beautiful leaded glass window that covered the entrance. And I stopped and I looked at it. I said, "Wow, look at that! That's beautiful." And he looked up. He says, "Huh? I never noticed that." And that's the thing about most people. They go through life with, like, a blindfold, or eye shades, or whatever you call those things on the side, and they don't look. They just see what's in front of them. I look at everything. I look at every little detail of things. I look at, well, how is that shadow working? I look at how things work in reality, and that's what's important, is to really take into account how things work, how light affects things, how materials affect things, because a material could be reflective, which means it's going to show its surroundings. If it's curved, it's going to distort those surroundings in a certain way. Knowing how curvatures distort things, knowing how light has shadows and how shadows travel along rough surfaces, those are the things that are important. It's just being observant of realism, of reality. So if you want to recreate reality, you really have to know what it looks like. So that's an important thing, is to just study the world around you. And your particular subject that you're working on, study. And you saw that I'll make models just to see how things work, so that I'm not guessing at something. I
Mhm.
do very good guesses because I've been doing this my entire life. I've been painting since I was 2 years old. But it's still, I rely on reality in order to be able to recreate it.
Mhm. The next question is, how much time did you spend to, I guess I should reword it, to become a professional? I've been doing this for 25 plus years and I'm still learning. And I know that you're the same way and you've been doing it twice as long almost.
Oh, more than twice as long. Like I said, I've been painting.
Yeah.
Well, I've been painting for 75 years.
There you
But
go.
anyway, yeah, it helps to be trained in the basics. Also,
Mhm.
nowadays, when you go to an art class, they just teach you the tool. Okay, but there's more to the tool, which is that observing stuff. I remember when I was in 8th grade, and I was looking for high schools. My teacher, Sister St. Helen, I'll never forget her. She said to me, "You've been in trouble your entire school life for drawing in class. You should check out this class, this school." It was the High School of Art and Design in New York. I took the test, I tried out, and I got in. And there I started learning about perspective and vanishing points. I started learning the basics, which are crucial for creating images. And I later on took classes at the School of Visual Arts, where I was a teacher for many years, uh, where I advanced my skills even further. And then it's just a question of practicing and,
Mhm.
again, studying the world to get it right. But let me put this on the screen in case they're still looking at my screen. Here's the new piece that I
Yep.
just
Let me
unveiled.
let me
Let me
switch
put
it.
that on.
I'll
Yeah,
switch it over.
yeah,
Yep.
there. So that's that last piece. Um, and so that's the whole thing, is to just, yeah, know the tools, but know the basics of art,
Mhm.
basics of how to create art, all the things that are involved. If your tools are only digital, that's a whole other story. That all the tools are in one place. I Before, I worked in watercolors and pastels and acrylics, oils, pencils. I used every medium available. But the beauty of digital is that they're all there.
Mhm.
And the most important thing is there's no maintenance. I remember I would paint something and I didn't like that particular color. I would now have to go and wash my brush, and clean it up and all that, mix new colors. That maintenance point or that period of maintenance takes away from the creativity. You're no longer thinking about what you're doing, whereas with digital, it's instant. I create a sky, I don't like that blue, I can immediately change it and have a bunch of variations until I get it right. There's no maintenance involved. And there's that undo,
Yeah,
the
keyboard
undo
shortcut.
command.
Yeah.
That helps, but it's instant, and all the tools, your airbrush is there, your pencil is there, your pen is there, everything, every tool that you could want is there at your disposal. So it makes it a lot easier to do things, and so you have to master those tools, and the best way to master them is to sit there and play.
Yep.
Yeah, watch shows like yours to stimulate you and inspire you, and then sit there and play. Like, what is this button? What does it do? Let me see what it does, and then hold down the option key and see what it does.
Hmm.
It does something different, So
I always tell people push Photoshop as far as you can, so far that you have to uninstall it and reinstall it. Because when I was learning Photoshop, I don't know to this day, I don't know what I did, that I had to reinstall Photoshop several times. Because like you said, push this button, do that button, mess it up,
yeah,
spend hours trying to figure out what you did.
yeah,
I don't want to keep you here forever, Bert, but there's a couple more questions coming in.
sure.
This is a two-part question. What is your layer naming organization workflow? And what is your favorite adjustment layer?
My favorite adjustment layer, I would say, is levels.
Levels.
Because it allows me to control the lights, darks, and
Mhm.
midtones in a way that I can bring out more detail on something, and so on. Um, that's I would say my favorite adjustment tool, and hue saturation. I use that a lot too.
Mhm.
Again, to bring up my colors tend to be a little more enhanced. One of my uh, inspirations growing up was an artist called Maxfield Parrish, and his paintings are very color saturated. And so mine tend to be a little more saturated than normal. So I use the hue saturation control. After I put something together, I'll go in there and work with certain tones and
Mhm.
punch them up a little more if I want. What was the first part of that question?
What is your layer naming workflow? How do you go about naming your layers, groups, and all that? How do you stay organized?
Well, I'll tell you what, let's go look at that file that I had here, the building on the left. Okay, here's the layers. Okay, notice that there was the cavity. Here's, what is this? This is a small gutter. Okay, there's a brace that's holding it, the edge of the brace. Here's a pipe, the pipe's shadow, the pipe's glow. There's the attachment, there's the lip in the front, lip in the side, under lip, lip side, and so on. Let's go see what this thing is. Let me go select it. Let's just see that. Okay, there it is. So
So all those layers just for that.
just for that, yeah. There's the piece right there. So let me, oh boy, let's go back a little bit. All right, now, there we go. So you see, like for instance, let's look at the lip front. See, right there, lip
Hmm.
front. So I name them what they are.
Hmm.
Okay, it is the attach right there. So let's see what the attach is. There's attach. Yep, there's attach. See? So that I name them what they are, so it makes it real easy.
Hmm.
And that's important because, like, for instance, Times Square, it took 4 years. And I just finished this little sign over here. And it's showing more of the thing next to it than I had created. So I got to go fix that. I did that 2 years ago. Where is it?
Hmm.
So I make sure that my files are properly named and they're in folders that, you know, centralize it to a specific area. And then every layer is specifically named so I know exactly where it is that I have to go find it and fix it. Because
Absolutely.
again, it's just easy. It's just being organized and knowing that the layers are named properly and that the files are named properly so that you can find them when you want to use them.
Amazing. Wilbert, thank you so much for joining us. People love the stream. A lot of great comments. This is so cool. Love the stream. Amazing comments. We made it up to almost 1,600 people watching. So thank you so
Oh,
much.
that's nice. That's cool. Well, I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you all enjoyed, or rather, learned something, and we're inspired to get when we're done here, shut down Zoom and or YouTube and get into Photoshop and start working.
Absolutely. I can't think of a better way to end the stream. Everybody be sure to check out bertmonroy.com. That is the website. That's where you will find Bert's books, artwork, and everything else he has going on. So check him out. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye.